really pleased that you managed to make it here, especially on such a beautiful sunny day. And we've got a beautiful sunny session to have with you, but it's about a serious topic. And the serious topic, sorry, my colleague David will keep popping over here. There's more people, primarily from Ukraine.
You've got them online now, so it's okay.
All of them? Oh, good, okay, fine, that's great. So, my name is Dalim, and I'm here. And I'm going to give you a brief intro, and then I'm going to hand over to somebody who's not there, that is in the room, and that is Claire. But let me just tell you a little bit about us and what we're doing. And I'll encourage Mike.
Yes, I'm going to back up. I just need to navigate to the slides.
Right, okay.
There we go.
And meanwhile, I'll tell you that the BCS has many, many groups, up to 100 groups. They're split between regional groups, such as London North, London Central, London South, and specialist groups, such as Cybersecurity, such as AI, and numerous others. Now, the BCS groups are run by volunteers, and I'm one of the volunteers, and my iterant colleague David is another, and he's getting his steps in whilst we're having this session, so you'll see quite a lot of him. But our shared aim in the BCS, the Chartered Institute for IT, is to make IT good for society. Now, that is you, but also we are aiming to make IT good for the wider society. And boy, oh boy, isn't our world changing very quickly. Now, I've told you that the London branches that I'm chairman of is 3 groups, and they are London North, Central, and South. We have the ability to reach almost 10,000 of the BCS's 70,000 members. The rest are waiting just outside in the atrium over there. We've got associations with lots of other branches and specialist groups. Primarily, I'd like to point out the Internet Security Specialist Group and also IRMA, the Information
Risk Management.
Thank you. The Information Risk Management Association, which is another specialist group, but there are numerous others. I mentioned AI and so on. But coming back to London branches, we ran over 40 events in 2023, which is why I look tired, and almost as many in 2024. And the way we're carrying on, we're going to be running almost the same number again during 2025. We deliver the events in three formats: in-person, hybrid, meaning in-person plus webinar, and webinar only. So that's what we do. What topics do we cover? Well, we've got a lot of topics which are covered by our initiative. And our initiative reflect our great committees of enthusiastic volunteers. So I'll give you the names of 12 of our initiatives. We do things on AI, business management and business analysis, cloud, cyber and security, data, diversity, early careers, eco, higher education IT, quantum, recruit IT, and risk. So we're busy. We showcase a wealth of IT-related experience, capabilities, innovation, and entrepreneurship. And this is all reflected on this slide that Mike's not showing from my presentation.
Would you like to?
I'm now halfway through.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the.
Yeah.
Yes, that'll do.
Okay.
So now we're going to play a game. The game is called Fact or Fake. I'll give you a clue. All the things I've told you until now are fact. But here is something which I'd like to test you on. 1991, the World Wide Web is the home of disintermediation. With no filters, gives anyone the right to speak. Disinformation is an instrument of power and competitive struggle that is used in the most varied fields. War, domestic and international politics, we'll hear lots more about those things soon, the world of business and finance, advertising, also the competition for power within any complex public or private organization. Using or ignoring facts in accordance with whether they create the desired impression is the principal agenda of today's media and even some global leaders, would you believe? It's therefore imperative to understand the mechanisms and dynamics of the web, how to recognize and combat the fake news, not only to protect our privacy, but also to safeguard our judgment, integrity, and autonomy in decisions about fakes. So there's a long statement. Is that a fact or is it a fake? Fact. Okay, fake. Sorry, this is a little stitch up because the date 1991 is completely erroneous.
Yes.
It was, in fact, related to the chap whose picture you see, who is our good friend, Professor Claudio Cilli of the University of Rome. The University of Rome Sapienza, if you know the different components of the University of Rome. I think I'll do this myself. This was the event that we had, and as it shows there, this was in 2021. And the stuff I've just read you is from the
Right in 2016.
profile, the summary that's on there. So we've been doing things for a long time, including we've been running things on fake news for quite a long time. But it's evolving, isn't it? It's getting really, really complicated. And again, my colleagues will talk much more about that. And Mike is an expert on all of this. I'm afraid Mike is ahead of us because it may be that we all need to become experts in it. But I have a surprise for you. Or do I? Fact or fake? There is a lady here called Claire Penketh. Those are her credentials. Now, you can see public affairs manager, etc., etc. And the question is, fact or fake? Who thinks that this information is factual? Oh, only me. So, two other people. I've got a few supporters. Okay, who thinks it's fake? Okay, again, I'm sorry. This is a little stitch up by me because Claire is, in fact, senior policy and public affairs manager at BCS. But she will be able to tell us much more about that. Please join me in welcoming Claire Penketh.
Thank you, Dalim.
Okay. Oh, no, you don't.
Right, I have to read my notes. It was a bit of a last-minute thing this morning. Disinformation and fake news matters. In the lead up to the last election, a BCS survey of our members found 65% of tech professionals believed AI-generated audio and video, misinformation could influence the outcome of the poll. Public education and technical solutions such as watermarking and labelling would be the two most effective measures for limiting the detrimental impact of deepfakes on democracy. 92% of our technologists said political parties should agree to publicise where and how they use AI in their campaigns. Only 8% were optimistic that a pact signed by several major tech companies would be effective. The firms had agreed in February 2024 to adopt reasonable precautions to prevent AI from being used to disrupt democratic elections around the world in the Tech Accord to combat deceptive use of AI in 2024 elections. The latest research from Alan Turing Institute said in its report, AI-enabled influence operations, threat analysis of the 2024 UK and European elections, that while disinformation or deepfake news had limited influence on these elections, the trend has the potential to undermine democracy. Satire, ridicule of public figures, via the disinformation of deepfakes, can be confused by some with actual truth. Or you can just add to the general cynicism of citizens when it comes to engagement in the political process. And that is deeply concerning, as it can lead to disengagement, a feeling that all politicians are the same, can't trust them.
No.
So what is BCS's stance on this, and what have we done? When the Ukrainian war first broke out, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the IT Ukraine Association in an act of solidarity. We heavily publicised that despite the invasion of their country by Russia, their tech sector was still thriving and open for business. That incoming business was needed to bolster the economy because of the devastation the war had had on the main Ukrainian export agriculture. As you know, Ukraine was proud to be known as the breadbasket of Europe and even the world due to its significant agricultural production and export capabilities. We held an event here at the BCS offices, I remember it well, with the then Ukrainian ambassador to Ukraine, Vladimirov, the former IT Ukraine Association's executive director, Konstantin Vasik, and our CEO at the time, Rashik Palmer. We also awarded Konstantin a fellowship at BCS in recognition of his promotion of the country's tech industry and for leading wartime growth. We held a series of webinars with leading disinformation and cybersecurity experts about fake news and disinformation. That was all 2.5 years ago, though, and our commitment to Ukraine remains the same. But what has changed is the rapid rise of deep fakes, especially from bad actors such as Russia, that seek to undermine not just Ukraine, but global democracies. In February this year, I responded on behalf of BCS to a request from the House of Commons Speaker to a call for evidence about the factors influencing the threat level against candidates and MPs and the effectiveness of the response to such threats. That included looking at the impact of deep fakes. My recommendations include, and there were quite a lot of them, it was quite in-depth, took me several days, enhancing public education and digital literacy, strengthening the adoption of technical solutions such as watermarking and AI detection tools for digital content verification, asking the government to consider strengthening the Online Safety Act to specifically address deepfakes and disinformation, bolstering intelligence sharing mechanisms to track and address threats from state actors, and investing in AI-powered monitoring tools to track foreign disinformation campaigns. This is just a snapshot of all the recommendations I did. If you want to have a look at them, if you go to our policy submissions on the BCS website, you can see the whole report. As a former BBC journalist for the World Service, I was taught that truth matters. And the first thing is always to do is to look for the source of your story. Can it be trusted? Who is paying for it? What other trusted sources have verified the facts as they are presented? But this is an arms race. And whilst it can feel overwhelming at times, the only thing we can all do as citizens is remain vigilant, and you as technologists continue to form technical and educational solutions backed by government legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I ought to just do another part of my little duty here. We're not expecting any fire alarm this evening. Are you? Are you expecting one? No. We're not expecting any fire alarms this evening. So my usual crack is, so if you hear bells ringing, tap on your head, make sure it's not coming from there, and then follow the respectful line that will proceed either that way and out through the sign showing a little green man, little white man on a green background, or back the way you came. That's if there are any fire alarms. If you feel you need to go to the washroom or whatever, that's down here, and There's a green plant. Go to the right, toilets are down there. Feel free to come and go as you wish, but try not to disturb too many people in your row. That's great. Well, I've disturbed this quite nicely so far, but I must hand you over now to our key coordinator, speaker, etc.,
Steve. Steve's next.
which is Mike. Well, it's you, after you.
Okay, well, I'm going to hand over to Steve Sands, and thank you, Dalim. Thank you very much, Claire, as well. So we'll just get Steve online.
Yeah, you should be able to share a screen. It's working.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
We can't see your PowerPoints here yet. So
That's not come through yet, has it? Right, let me just...
Zoom, no, it's okay, it's on Zoom, but not on the BCS one.
That should be sharing with you now.
You'll have gathered that this event is going to be a glorious patchwork of presentations and talks from various places.
It's going to be one of our best. This is BCS at the best. At our very best, stitching things together.
Let's give Steve a clap because it's not easy remotely.
Yeah, and Steve, do you want to just tell everybody who you are and what your role is here at the BCS?
Sharing this.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. I don't know whether you can see me or not. I suspect not. I'm Steve Sims. I'm chair of the Information Security Specialist Group, and as Dalim has already mentioned, we cover anything in the BCS. We're the specialist group that covers anything to do with information security, cybersecurity, and privacy. So we're absolutely all over anything to do with any of those subjects. And therefore, when I was asked to speak tonight, I grasped the opportunity with both hands, as it were. I'm padding here to give you guys a chance to get my slides on the screen. I can see some things moving around. Looking good. That's looking good. So the other confession I've got is that I had no idea Claire Penketh was coming tonight. I'm deeply grateful that she is, because she has much better than I can outlined the BCS policy position on disinformation. Claire sent me some policy information a week or so ago, and I've stitched probably just the highlights into a couple of slides, which I'm going to rattle through very, very quickly. Pardon me, that's my phone. Rattle through very, very quickly, but in truth, that'll just be a summary of what Claire has already told you. And that probably helps all of us, because it means that we can move on to the more interesting and probably worthwhile discussion that's going to follow. So very, very quickly then, I'm hoping that you can see my slide change. Brilliant. That's good. So Claire's already talked about BCS support for Ukraine and all of the work that we've been doing with Ukraine since that war was declared. It's worth mentioning that the policy jam that was held in March 22, we had a number of speakers on there. Some of you might recognize Jen Ellis, Lisa Forte, Patrick Burgess, Alexi Drew, I think it is. And they did a very, very good policy jam, which is still available on the website, talking about hacktivism, both against the Ukrainians, but also the possible hacktivism that might grow around other parts of the world. And in particular, of course, we were concerned with the UK. Interestingly, that probably hasn't manifested itself in quite the way we expected. Nevertheless, the problem exists. And I thought this was quite interesting. This is a guy called Mark Twain. And of course, Mark Twain wrote lots of great books, but he was also very famous for quotes about truth and lies. And when we're talking about misinformation and disinformation, well, we're definitely in the realm of truth and lies. He says, if you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. Good advice, I think. Never tell the truth to people who are not worthy of it. Yeah, okay. The third one, I think, is the most interesting. A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is still putting on its shoes. And of course, he wrote that before there was such a thing as the internet. These days, a lie can travel halfway around the world within microseconds, certainly milliseconds. So never mind the truth still putting on its shoes or tying its shoelaces, lies travel incredibly quickly. So whether that's misinformation or disinformation, it almost doesn't matter. It's going to travel very, very quickly. So Claire has already talked about the BCS position on misinformation and disinformation. I'm not going to go through that again because we've got other things that we can spend our time on more valuably this evening. These are the headings that Claire went through: enhancing public education, digital literacy, strengthening technical solutions, regulation and platform accountability, legal and law enforcement measures, and tackling foreign state influence. I genuinely would recommend going onto the BCS website, the policy area, and reading through all of this, because it's as valid today as it was when it was written just a handful of years ago. So for me, just to finish up before we get into something much more interesting and useful, these are some of the events that we've run in the past couple of years on disinformation. So this was Dr. Alexei Drew in January 2021, who produced a paper entitled Disinformation Kills. Now, what are we going to do about it? We also produced The New Frontier, Cybersecurity and Disinformation in Russia's Invasion of Ukraine. That was the policy jam that we've referred to already. And the third one here, this was a workshop stroke webinar that we produced in collaboration with the Fellows Technical Advisory Group in June 2024 to address one of those issues that Claire was talking about, which is authenticity of digital media and artificial intelligence in current times. And Dr. Dipayan Bhowmik was the main speaker at that event. That is currently on the ISSG past events website. So if you do want to go look at it, you can still find it there. And I think that probably just wraps things up for me. So I'm going to pass back to either Mike or Dalim, whoever wants to speak next. Off you go, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Let's make sure we can see it.
I'll leave it to you. Okay, so while we get the slides swapped over, I'll just introduce myself. So my name is Mike Lloyd. I specialize in artificial intelligence. So I'm not a cyber guy. I do a number of things with the British Computer Society related to that, including I'm an examiner for AI projects as part of what the BCS do on the learning and development side. My interest in this area actually comes from a tangent. Since the early 1980s, yes, I am that old, I've been deeply involved in addressing climate change, and that's been my main kind of thrust behind my career for many, many years. I worked for Microsoft for many years, but still very much involved and very much engaged in addressing climate change, which I see as, you know, the single biggest problem that we as a species actually face.
Presentation?
Yes, that should be mine. Let me just have a quick look. So, yes, there we go. Good, if you pop that up, I appreciate that. Okay, so, clearly with Ukrainian war and what's happening around the world becoming more febrile, I became more interested in the kind of cyber space as well. So I attended an event with Claudio Cilli, who Dalim's already mentioned. And Claudio said something which, I really do genuinely worship this guy. He is absolutely brilliant. If you've not heard of Claudio Cilli, then you need to. He's absolutely brilliant. But he said one thing in his presentation which got me really thinking. He said, I asked him a question, I said, do you think that, that it's possible to win the information war and, that governments can do something about that? And his answer was no. And I thought, oh, that's a bit of an odd answer, really. We're technologists at the end of the day. We find yes answers, don't we? We find ways to do things. And that struck me as like, kind of like, okay, well, let's explore that further. So that's how this event came about, really, is really to try and put together people who have, deep interest in this area, interest in solving this massive problem, and see if we can put enough brains in the room to get stuff done. So that was the idea behind this, is not to take no as an answer, and to see if there is a way that we can address this problem. And so that leads me to, I guess, a question for you. I just want to get a feeling in the room. We've got it's fantastic to see a real diverse audience here today. But I'd just like a show of hands. I've got 4 options on what could we do about, or whether we can actually do anything about disinformation. You think about the scale of this problem, the impact of this problem. So the first question I got for you is, how many people here would agree that we can't do anything about it? That we're screwed, basically. So, yeah, that there's nothing we can do about disinformation. We're just going to have to learn to live with it. Yeah, all right, that's, and there are no right or wrong answers, right? Nobody knows how to defeat this at this point in time, in all seriousness. Okay, how many think that we can defeat it?
We can.
Yeah, how many think we can defeat disinformation? I mean, you're not going to defeat all disinformation, right? I mean, it's such a massive thing, but certainly the worst of it. How many think that it's possible to defeat the worst of it? Oh, that's great. All right, there's some optimism with that. Okay. So my next question, and how many of you think we should at least try to do something about that? Fantastic. That's why we're here tonight. That's what I'd like to see. All right. And how about how many of you think that we must do something about it? Oh, even better, even better. All right, that's great. Okay, good. So what we put on tonight is a number of speakers who've got expertise in different areas, who can, start to sketch out the landscape. But I'm sorry to disappoint you. You're not going to walk away with any answers tonight. Just perspectives. That's the next step of what we're trying to do, is to get people interested in the questions, so we can then go about cracking those as problems, as we do every day as technologists. So, the lineup that we've got tonight includes cybersecurity experts. We've got somebody who works with Steve, who's going to talk to us about finance and the role of finance in this, and the kind of forensics around that. And then we're going to talk to some people from Ukraine. And the reason why we are focusing on Ukraine is a very simple reason. That's because for us, disinformation, I wouldn't say that is optional, but it's certainly not as life-threatening to us, perhaps in the UK, but in Ukraine, it's a matter of life and death, and it's a matter of existence as a state. So they take it extremely seriously, and my belief is that we've got a tremendous amount to learn from the Ukrainians. So we'll hear a little bit from the International's Cybersecurity University of Ukraine later on in this presentation. As Dalim said, we were hoping to get somebody here in person, but she got stopped at the Poland border. Yeah.
A question for you, Mike. Have we seen successful defence against disinformation in the result of the Romanian election?
I have no idea whatsoever. The Romanian election has, I believe, just been settled as either today or yesterday. There's been a surprising win for the non-far right candidate. The reasons for that, I have no idea. We'd have to really, look into a whole range of different factors that might be driving that. Dalim.
Diana, do you have an opinion? Resident Romanian?
President Diana.
Well, I mean, obviously there has been a lot of disinformation, and especially in the first election, as we all know. It was, well, I don't know how, current is everyone with it, but our first election has been dismissed by our constitutional court due to the fact that the majority was won by one person nobody heard anything about before, but he ended up making very good ads on TikTok 2 weeks before the election. So everyone that wasn't necessarily informed or didn't really know anything about politics ended up voting for them. He was a very far-right extremist, and there are very many speculations about how he got the money because there were millions of euros spent on TikTok ads for that campaign itself. And after that, the Constitutional Court dismissed the whole election, and we just now had our second election. Very happy to announce that, yes, the far right did not win. However, I wouldn't say it's surprising.
So the whole population stepped up to the mark.
I would aim for the democracy, yes. We also have a history of stepping out when it's necessary. And I'm very happy with the election itself and how it ended up. It was very funny though, because last night, at the very first exit poll that was announced, the far-right candidate also gave the victory speech as well, saying he is a president of Romania as well.
I thought, oh no. Oops, did I just let that slip?
Yeah, so I think there was a lot of disinformation there. I think him blaming Telegram, that he was trying to be silenced by Telegram, was a very far-fetched one in the first place.
Interesting thing was when the Swedes had this in 2014 and told everyone about it, the knowledge of Russian, Swedish-wise, Swedish is a difficult language, and they were using the Soviet trade legations to spread fake news. And obviously they were building a facility, and to a man they came off that role. The Swedes laughed it off. So the Swedes laughed it off. You had legislation in Romania, that has to be part of the tooling.
None of this at all is new, right?
Yeah.
This is just a continuation of what was happening in Roman times, right? You can go back to Octavian, who waged a disinformation campaign against Mark Antony using coins, right? Using the Roman currency in order to do that, to get the message out. So there's absolutely nothing unusual in any of this stuff, apart from the fact we now have this on steroids. So clearly the rapid rise of the use of social media, if you can actually call it social media, I don't think there's anything particularly social about it anymore, but that's clearly amplified what's happening. And as Steve said, Mark Twain said that the truth has gone twice around the world by the time a lie has gone around the world, before the truth has put his shoes on. False information spreads 6 times faster than the truth, and worse still, once that virus has spread and is in people's minds, it's a real job to shift people's views from that. They believe it. We try getting people to not believe it once they've believed it. So, and we can see all kinds of cynical things going on at the moment, which exploits that human weakness. So, so what does it cost us? Well, if you think about vaccine disinformation, that could be up to somewhere between 1.2 trillion and 8 trillion a year. We're already seeing that in Texas at the moment with the spread of measles. There are significant impacts on democratic processes. Obviously, we've seen that in the United States, happening also in South Korea. And in India, I'm delighted that we have a guest from India tonight who's interested in this area. 25% of Indian political news is fake in 2019. So we're seeing this over and over again. The disinformation behind the riots in the UK last year came from both within and beyond the country extremely quickly, spreading lies, and we saw instantly what the result of that was. So, so these are real things, and so the price is very high indeed. And if you think that cyber crime, costs well, actually the numbers out, but anybody want to the numbers covered out. Anybody want to guess what the total cost of cybercrime worldwide is? Cybercrime.
4 trillion.
Put a number on it, anybody.
4 trillion.
4 trillion, keep going.
10 trillion.
10 trillion, spot on, yeah. All right, you've got X-ray vision, you can see through. Yeah, it's 10 trillion. That's equivalent to 2 Indias or a Japan and a Germany, right? That's cybercrime. And an enormous part of cybercrime is social engineering, which is lying to people about the content of an email or ways of breaking in which rely on deception, right? So you could, in theory, argue that the deception industry is worth 8 trillion a year. So when you got that kind of reward coming in, is it any surprise that people's behaviors are orientated in that direction? So if that's the cost, then what's the price? So disinformation is deliberately undermining trust in institutions. It clearly creates social divisions. We did a piece of work recently where you can trace mathematically the way that people become polarized over time just by reading recommendations that come online and following YouTube recommendations. So, it's affecting financial markets. Yes.
So that figure of, say, 10 trillion,
Yes.
is that just for disinformation, or is
No.
it also in
That is cybercrime as a whole.
criminal fraternity using scams and all this as well?
Yeah, so that is the money that is made through cybercrime, but most of cybercrime comes through social engineering. We think of it a lot of it is tunneling into people's systems and planting viruses and so on, but very often that comes through emails. Emails have been dressed up as something else, so it's a deception. So you could argue that of that 10 trillion, that's certainly a very large number. It comes from deception, right? So there's a deception industry, is what I'm trying to say. A couple of weeks ago, I came across a company who they take carbon dioxide and they sequestrate it into rocks. And they were telling me that they were subject to a disinformation campaign where people were being told, and the press was being told, that they're actually squirting radioactivity into rocks. Now, what does that do when they go out to find funding? Right? You're not going to get, if people who are likely to invest in your company have been exposed to that media, what are they going to do? They say, oh, the risk is too much, I'll move on. So, this has a real financial impact, and companies, I think, are becoming far more interested in this than they used to. So, we can ask a question, how else does disinformation affect us? How can we understand and mitigate this impact? That remains a major question that is really not answered at this point in time. Yeah.
I think a very serious issue, which you or no one else has mentioned, is the effect on children, especially teenagers, including suicide.
Yes, I would agree, yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
Sexual activity and all this stuff.
No, I totally agree. Yeah. But it helps, I think, to understand why people do this. And my belief is that there's just two things that lie behind it. Number one is power, the other one's money. Power usually translates into money anyway, as we are seeing a very obvious example of at this point in time. So, disinformation publishers receive 2.6 billion a year from advertising as linked to sensational content. You can see that sensational content on Facebook and particularly on X. So there's money to be made through pushing this stuff out. There's a lot of money to be made through advertising and pushing this stuff out. Now you could argue, well, that's always been the case, right? How does the sun's circulation, the sun, the sun? It's just me at my age, but the sun was a big deal, right? When I was growing up, and always a sensationalist headline that sold the newspapers, right? So there's nothing new in this. But what I think is new in this is the quantity, the speed, and the amount of corrosion that is causing in society.
Sorry, Freddie Starr ate my hamster.
You got it, yeah, or gotcha when the Belgrano was sunk, right? You know, this is all sensational stuff. So the question then is, what practical measures can be implemented to reduce the financial and political incentives behind it? I don't believe that we have an answer to that yet, and that is one of the reasons why we've concluded this meeting tonight. Okay, so I'll just pick out one thing out of this, which I think is really important. Fact-checking is really good, and you know, obviously, if you're a rational person, you will use fact-checking. But the point is that most of this stuff has got nothing to do with rationality. It's purely emotion. It's driven by emotion. And one thing which I have to thank my wife for, my wife recently did a master's in psychoanalysis, and one of the things that she looked at was why do people believe this stuff? Why is it they believe? Well, a big part of her research was around why belonging to a group is more important than facts. So if you're bound together by, I could be flat earth to take an extreme example, if you're bound together by the belief that the world is flat and you have a social life through that, you have friends through that, then somebody comes around and say, no, the world is spherical, they're out of the group. They're not in your group. So this group thing is way, way more important than facts. So I think fact-checking is good if you look at it from a rational point of view. You know, it certainly has its place in the armory, but it's nowhere near, not even close to enough to actually start to deal with some of the more serious kind of disinformation that we get, because we have to recognize that the more serious stuff is really driven by emotion rather than by anything factual. So, okay, so, you know, can we break the link between finance and disinformation? I don't know. I don't know if we can, but I sure hope we can somehow or other. There are moves afoot. There's the European Union have got new legislation in which should make it more difficult. But what is it that can be done to address the problem of people making money out of disinformation? So, in the interest of time, I shall skip on with the next. All right, so what are we trying to do? What are the next steps? This is a major problem. We don't have the answers, but we certainly have some questions. And we have some people with superior expertise to what we've got here in the UK. And these are the people who are, as I said earlier on, are fighting disinformation in order to preserve their entire society. Okay, so their stake in it is extremely high. So our goal, and it might be slightly naive in some ways, but it's something which we are at least going to explore, is the idea that we can build a network based on open source intelligence and have cells, if you like, around Europe. So one piece of work I've done recently with the British Council has been to kind of tour around Europe, training young people between the age of 18 and 35 on various technologies. Our latest one was focused on humanizing technology, and by far and away, the biggest concern they all had was on disinformation. They all wanted to do projects on disinformation. So my sense was, if we can just bottle that enthusiasm, train them on open source intelligence, then we can support Ukraine, and Ukraine can support us, and we can build a network that is stronger than the sum of the parts to go about tackling this. And we applied to the Foreign Office with the Ukrainian International Cyber Security University. We applied for Foreign Office funding in order to try and enact that. So that's where we are at the moment. I mean, it's we might have to wait for a while for that bid to be evaluated. We don't know if we're going to get anything from that or not. But regardless, I still think there's a great opportunity here. Yesterday, we were offered premises in London that we can work from. So, if we were to form a team, a group, we could actually go to somewhere and start learning OSINT and seeing what we could actually do. So, there's at least the chance of setting up a cell, if you like, here in London to start to work with the Ukrainians on this. So that's what we are up to. Schelling's model of segregation. I knew it would come. Yes, there we go. All right. So that's me done. So I'm going to hand over to. I'm going to hand over to Helen Oluyemi, who's a rising star in the cyber world, and Helen's going to talk to us a little bit about the added problem that we now have with disinformation in terms of AI, and why that is something which we should really start to take very seriously indeed. So, Helen.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Okay, my name is Helen Oluyemi, as Mike introduced me earlier, and about me, information security manager with over 9 years of work experience in the cyber field. I'm a Nigerian. I moved to the UK 5 years ago. 5 years stays in so talking about AI accelerating the disinformation crisis.
Helen, can you speak up a bit?
Okay, I will do that. Okay, so I've got some notes here, so you might see me looking at my phone. Can I leave it on as full screen? That's fine. And disinformation is one of the most pressing threats to democracy today. I know we've all heard from Steve, from Mike, and I think Steve, in one of his slides, he mentioned about how lies just move faster than truth. And an example would be, we all heard about the recent attack on UK retailers like M&S, Co-op, and the likes. And I think there was this information moving faster and say, you can actually quickly order something online and, without having to pay anything and, tell your friends before you know. A lot of information moving around and people, and which kind of makes M&S really at loss in terms of ordering something on M&S online store. So which kind of shows us how fast information could actually flow. If it was really the truth, maybe it might not have flow faster. Say, for instance, I won £1,000,000 and telling a friend, person might be like, £1,000,000 and start processing it in his or her mind and might not even say anything to the other friend, and maybe it could take some time for the person to process it. But if I say something bad or, it could actually really flow fast. And that is what this information is all about. So today we'll be looking at introduction, why this matters. Why are we looking at AI in disinformation, and how is AI accelerating this information? And I will just walk us through three hows, and then case study. I know we'll be talking about Ukraine, so I might not dwell much on the Ukraine disinformation battlefield, and how AI is a double-edged sword. And I also want to hear our thoughts around this. Okay, so next slide is introduction, why this matter. Like I mentioned earlier, disinformation is a growing threat to democracy. Before now we might have seen disinformation as a marginal problem. However, something limited to probably like an online rumors or a niche forum, but that's no longer the case in this situation. And it's because disinformation has become like a central threat to democracy, to public health and national security. And the question here is, sometimes I just ask myself, looking at the time, I think at some point I saw like a time saying 17:14, and I checked my wristwatch, it's saying 17:11. I'm like, okay, which one is true? Then I checked my phone, it's 17:11, and I'm like, okay, which one would I believe? Because I know that my phone is connected to my wristwatch, so that means they are feeding the same information, but I don't know where the timer from the laptop is coming from, and which kind of bothers my mind and say, how do I identify which one is exactly the truth? Probably I need to confirm from a neighbor and say, oh, what's the time on your phone? And I can be like, okay, from there, I'm able to declare that this is the important truth. But with AI, sometimes we think that, okay, if I post like a fake news online, it might take some time for it to kind of propagate, right? Yeah, millisecond. But with AI, using AI bots and the likes, it's just move faster, faster than we can think. Because AI, they don't sleep, they are always working 24/7. And that is why sometimes we feel that is AI a threat to our jobs, that's a question for another day. And so the question here is, how do we defend truth in a rapidly evolving digital world? It's a question for us. I'm not here to address the question. I just want us to think about it. And I have the battle for public trust is now fought in pixel, algorithm, and attention span. Okay, so my next slide will be, how is AI accelerating disinformation? Here I have generative AI supercharging fakes. If you want to kind of create like, a video content, right now you don't need like an Hollywood studio to create a video content. Neither do you need to be an expert in cybersecurity to create a simple line of, phishing link. And even like in our day-to-day, for instance, personally for me, I think with the use of AI, if I need to create like a document or compose an email, as long as I have the prompt engineering skill or the prompt skill, I'm able to just query and open source. I don't even need the premium version to do this, right? Open source version, and I say, can you write me an email on this and this? And within seconds, I get it out. Which was that as AI is helping me to perform my work or perform analysis better in cybersecurity, it's also helping the attackers or the bad guys creating sophisticated attacks. And that means we need to kind of create like a balance, right? So if I need to kind of shoot video or edit a video, I feel I don't need like a video editing skills to do that, as long as I have the right AI tools to do that, right? And so text, images, voice, and video generation is now trivial. And sometimes I'm sure that even before 2025 in the past, we've seen video of Barack Obama, saying that Barack Obama is saying something else and like using deepfake, for instance, or even with this Russia-Ukraine war around surrender, like, oh, we've surrendered to Russia, which is like a fake content, and that kind of flows really faster. Sometimes in our mind, I think we might start thinking of, okay, this is a picture. Is this picture AI generated, or is this picture real? How do we distinguish this? Question for thought. And deepfake impersonating leaders and spreading chaos, like political leaders. I just mentioned with the issue of Russia and Ukraine. And a lot of examples, really. I could as well be like, okay, Helen without the English accent or British accent, and tomorrow I could see myself online with an accent, using AI without necessarily mean that I can speak the British accent, right? I still have my Nigerian accent. And the second one, how AI is accelerating is hyper-personalization of information. AI helps tailor content to individual beliefs and biases. And I will give you an example in this case. AI is it's beyond creating content, right? It's now strategic. An example would be, of recent, I've been doing like research on body care products, facials. As women, you just want your skin to glow without makeup and the likes, or the best makeup, and checking online, searching all those kind of things. By the time you go to Instagram or Twitter or TikTok, you might start seeing suggestions around what you recently searched for. Even sometimes you might not even have checked Google Chrome. It could even be that you ask someone about, oh, do you know, can you recommend the best facial product for me on WhatsApp, right? Maybe just a line of facial product. And then in another minute, when you go to Instagram, you start seeing ads around facial products, right? So sometimes it's like, could it be that there's like a link between my WhatsApp search and Instagram or Facebook or Twitter and the likes? So an example would be like, for instance, I believe that a particular product is the best for facial skincare. And for instance, we believe that another product is the best for facial skincare. But based on our research, right, I'd say like a skincare product company could present different videos to us, right? And I would be like, oh, 2% neonicotinoid is the best, and you are reading that 5% neonicotinoid is the best. And that way, we have different contents, and it could actually erode trust. Because it's not about what I believe, it's about, do I even trust you? And that could affect like public safety. So we are not in the world of where I'm saying, okay, I like what you're doing, but it's like, do I really trust what you're presenting to me? And that could affect the society as a whole. And then the scale and speed, which is human can keep up. AI bots can flood platform with information in minutes, volume, overwhelm, spell check, and users. And reactive models are no longer enough. In this scenario, an example I could think of in this scenario would be, so I think there was this research around, before now we say, phishing email, you need to start looking for, don't click on a link, human is the weakest factor. But are human really the weakest factor when it comes to phishing emails now? Because there are AI tools that could help you even click on the link without your input, right? So I think this kind of changed the information around information security awareness training or phishing awareness training around, okay, don't click on a link because we are the weakest link. Are we really the weakest link now, or is AI the weakest link at the same time the strongest link? And so how do we keep up? So for instance, like I mentioned, information can travel fast in milliseconds, but as an expert, as professional, you might want to kind of check, is this really true? Is this a fact? And I think we might need to start looking at it from a proactive approach rather than reactive, saying, okay, there's an information online, I need to check if this information is truth or lie, right? Which means that you are reacting to the information. But that information can travel so fast beyond human brain. So how do we make this like a proactive approach? Even before the information is released online, what do we need to do to prevent fake information from spreading? Right. I think that's where the scale and speed, where human can't.
We're at the time, so
I'm
we're on the last slide.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, I'm going to skip the case study here because we talked about the Ukraine and so AI being a double-edged sword. As AI is empowering an attacker, it's also empowering us. But I feel that attackers move faster than human in terms of, if I'm saying I want to verify an information, it might take me minutes, but it takes AI milliseconds to do that. So how do we strike the balance here? And that is why I said AI is a double-edged sword. It's sweet, at the same time it's bitter. But we need to kind of strike balance in this situation. So thoughts, which is the last slide, would be, what AI tools best support defenders? And how do we trace disinformation network at scale without having to depend on human? How do we use AI to our own advantage in this scenario? And who governs AI use in this space, and how? and other questions because of that. You can actually read that. And I think that's it for me. And thank you for listening.
Okay, so next we have Chris Lewis. So Chris is Head of Solutions at Synectics. And Chris is going to talk to us about the financial aspects of what we're talking about here, cyber fraud. And we'll tease out some connections between that and disinformation. So thank you, Chris.
Chris, can you share your screen?
I'm just in the process. Let me know when it's all looking good. Whilst the tech guys are doing their tech stuff, our colleague of Steve, thanks to Steve for inviting me along to do with Steve at Synopsis, his other job that's not at the BCS. Synectics, we're a counter-fraud data and technology company based in beautiful Stoke-on-Trent, Burslem. And probably enough said about that. My expertise is very much more in the fraud technology space. However, I've got to tie in, and there will be some echoes of the previous presentation, I think, on the link in between AI, shallow fakes, deep fakes, social engineering, fraud, financial crime, and the broader organised criminal landscape that we operate in. So I'm just going to touch through a few things that our clients start to talk to me about when I'm doing presentations or conversations at our kind of steering committees. We predominantly work in financial services, insurance, public sector, that sort of thing. We have a very boring reading taste. So this one I'd recommend to anybody that wants to learn about the history of money laundering in the UK. It's called Moneyland: Why Thieves and Crooks Now Rule the World and How to Take It Back. It is, to say the very least, a pretty bleak reading about the history of money laundering and why no buildings in London are owned by anyone British, and often by, state actors through various nefarious means. So dirty money everywhere, not a drop to drink. Next, I've got this amazing, I love a made-up word, deep fakes and the info apocalypse, what you urgently need to know right now, by this lady called Nina Schick, who is from the US. This talks about the history of fake news and disinformation, all the way back to similar sorts of times as Mark Anthony has in the first presentation. So basically you got the combination of dirty money everywhere, and then lack of trust and easy way to manipulate people over the internet. Sorry, I've got a bit of feedback. I don't know if someone's got the mic on and rustling around eating crisps or something, but sorry, I'm just going to carry on.
Was it crisps?
Yeah. It sounds like someone's rustling around eating crisps. Yeah, I mean, I'm hungry. I want my dinner, so yeah, save some for me. Number 3, then, our final invention, a very bleakly named book from a journalist called James Barrett. Artificial Intelligence and the End of the Human Era. I wish it was science fiction, and I know it's not, by Jan Tillin, the co-founder of Skype. What happened to Skype? Who cares what she thinks? But yeah, generally, so you got dirty money everywhere, not a drop to drink. How do you believe or say anything that you can trust on the internet? And AI and robots are going to destroy us. So what does that mean? This would normally be our audience participation, but given I'm the most, I'm not going to put you through that pain. So TikTok, Xi Jinping's Western world's surveillance machine, took only 9 months to get 100 million concurrent users per month worldwide, which is crazy. For a little bit of context, the regular old telephone took 75 years, the mobile phone took 16 years, and the internet took 7. And then ChatGPT, to echo the previous presentation, took between 45 days and 2 months to get 100 million users worldwide. So, the world's getting weirder and it's happening much faster. And yes, Helen, it's definitely not me making that background noise. I'm not eating crisps. So, tying this into fraud, in the UK alone, 40% of all crimes reported, according to the National Crime Agency, are fraud. Our own research and that of our partners, CIFAS, who are not-for-profit that focus on fraud data sharing, estimate that roughly 70% of all frauds have a cyber or digital component. We recently did a survey of our customers looking at scams, or essentially people doing confidence tricks to convince them to take money out of to send their money to other people. Where again, we will talk about 80 to 85% of these scams were enabled specifically by online platforms such as Facebook Marketplace, or through TikTok or Instagram, or all those other kind of peer-to-peer services where one can influence others. Sorry, it was just another, I'll carry on. Synthetic identities, if you're American, false identities, if you're British, enabled by AI, it's exponentially growing. We've seen nearly a 300% year-on-year increase the last 3 years running on fake people being used to apply for products, being used to influence people to send money to them. And that is, again, using some of the previous examples from the last presentation. And then using that combination of synthetic identity, AI, and the ability it means to do confidence tricks means that social engineering is becoming the kind of default way in which the perpetrators of fraud are trying to essentially extort people out of their cash. But it's not just people, it's also the state. So in the state, the Public Sector Fraud Authority, who we work with, they're part of the UK Cabinet Office, and they're responsible for preventing fraud at the scale of the UK public sector, estimate themselves that the public sector alone loses between 33 and 59 billion pounds per year. I like to measure that in HS2s, given I live in Cheshire. That's one HS2 per year currently lost to fraud now in the public sector, according to the public sector. And then the last one, if anyone was reading the news in the Times, there was this scandal regarding sham students and giant university fraud scandal at the student loans company. I can't hear the noise anymore, David, so I think you may have addressed it, where essentially organised crime taking out maintenance grants for student loans, where again the losses are between 1 and 2 billion. By some of the estimates that we've done in terms of the overall exposure there, you're talking more, again, 5 to 6 billion pounds alone lost to fraudulent student loans in the last every year. If you compare that to the financial services sector, the whole banking sector estimates that they lose between 3 and 3.5 billion pounds per year. So the size and scale is huge. Of course, fraud is a predicate crime. Where does the money go? Well, it's a predicate crime for money laundering. So not quite as big as the disinformation ecosystem, but it's not a bad economy in of itself. So the Financial Action Task Force estimate that money laundering is the world's 11th biggest economy, roughly 3.5 trillion pounds per annum is laundered by organised crime. And that's the thing, it's not just a case of I've got all this cash, I've got my 33 to 59 billion pounds per year from the PSFA. What do I then do with that money? What happens next? What is that funding? And it's certainly not all going on BMWs with blacked out windows, or indeed properties based in London. So what do they do? Just today, actually, there was some news regarding some private data, including criminal records stolen in a legal aid hack. That was today's breaking news. There was obviously the much publicised Marks and Spencer's IT systems breach, where they went through a contractor, socially engineered, to then go and basically breach data and commit a cyber attack. What they do is they know who the bad guy, they know who the good guys are. They have sucker lists that they exploit. They share data and intelligence with each other with impunity about how to commit fraud, about the information regarding people that they can use to then commit fraud, around your personal information. Like there's some stat that says like the average email address for a UK adult will have about 160 different accounts associated with it. Do you know every account associated with your primary email address? Do you even know how many email addresses you have? And I certainly don't, especially given I'm only 32 and I used to have some stuff I used for online gaming to get around my mum and dad's firewall back in the day. So yeah, God knows where all that information has been leaked over time. They are now an AI-enabled as standard, as per the previous presentation. And the most important thing is they operate with impunity and they are at scale. They can do what they like. They are state-sponsored, they are organised, they are well-funded. Again, 33 to 59 billion from the UK public sector alone. We're just a mid-range, economy in the grand scheme of things. The size and scale of it is almost impossible to comprehend. And they get to do it with impunity at scale. 64% of financial services companies have 1,000+ sensitive files accessible to every employee, and 81% of confirmed breaches due to weak, reused, or stolen passwords. It's all part of the same problem. So I know my presentation about financial forensics, not to do about disinformation. Can't help with that, to be honest. But what I can do is talk a bit more about how we, as a sector, try and protect the customer and protect institutions from having these things happen to them. And believe it or not, we do the same thing. We use the same tools. We use data and intelligence sharing at the scale of at least UK PLC or US PLC. We have most of our success we find is around eligibility and qualifying whether one is eligible for that product. Are you who you say you are, and do we trust you? And then do we trust the payments that happen once you're starting to use your facility? How do we, the traditional way to identify organised crime is to follow the money, literally following marked bills. I had the privilege of being on a panel with this fellow called Bob Mazur, who, if you ever watched the movie The Infiltrator, played by Bryan Cranston, he infiltrated the Medellin cartel. And again, marked money and all that sort of stuff, was critical to bringing down this huge bank that was enabling them to launder all of their ill-gotten gains. And again, that's how they do it. So one of the things the industry is exploring is how do you mark a digital transaction? How do you do the equivalent to follow stuff that's got secret paint on it or marked bills when you're looking at the flows of online money? However, at the same time, money is moving more quickly. The world is moving to faster and faster payments. Customers have lower and lower thresholds and patience thresholds when it comes to the moving of money. So there's always a massive balance between, the weapons that we've got and the means in which that we can apply them. But the biggest difference between us and the threat is impunity. We do not operate with impunity. We have morals, we have laws, we have obligations to protect our customers, particularly those that are vulnerable. So as a result, we need to try and make sure that we also balance our ability to do forensics on the finances and follow the money, but to follow the money with care due regard for the individuals, the victims, and without compromising individuals' privacy, without creating Big Brother, and to still try and align to the laws and regulations that we put in place. And when you overlay then the commercial interests of the large, software companies that sit behind a lot of this stuff, it does become quite complicated to understand, how do you really feed these types of controls and apply them at the right time to address the right sorts of use cases. So what's going on? Well, I think it's actually got a positive look on this from what we do. I'd say, and this is my opinion, but I believe that more progress has been made in terms of the laws and regulatory environments for people to share data and intelligence within jurisdictions in the last 24 months and in at least, the decade before it. Whether it's in Canada, whether it's in the European Union, whether it's in Hong Kong, whether it's in Singapore, there are huge, massive pilots or schemes that are getting off the ground that allows institutions either within the private sector, within the private and public sector, to actually start to share data, intelligence, transaction information with one another regarding threats, regarding fraud, regarding broader financial crime, regarding perpetrators of organised crime, regarding counter-terrorist financing, regarding intellectual property theft, and all sorts of other different use cases. There's a larger G20 cross-border payments plan that just this week contributed, thankfully, to a roundtable on this, which is evaluating about how we can embed data sharing and intelligence sharing into the G20 cross-border payments plan prior to us actually executing this plan. It's a bit late in the day because the plan already exists, but at least we're listening at that kind of scale of institution to think about how do we actually improve our collective defences. However, the big issue we currently have is that all of these schemes are domestic. We have no established bilateral or multilateral information or intelligence sharing for fraud or financial crime. Our biggest issue is balancing privacy regulatory divergence with the specific use case. It may not be that that regulation does not allow for intelligence sharing to enable financial forensics. It's the speed in which action can be taken, plus the cost of sharing. If you just take a bank like Lloyd's banking group in the UK, for example, they have about 50 to 60 million customer accounts across all the different products that they offer. We normally estimate a 5% referral rate for fraud per customer per year, 60 million, 5%. That's already a significant amount of work just for anyone to even figure out where the risk is and where it actually exists. And that's one bank in the UK. When you then scale that up to the size of all these different jurisdictions here talking to one another, it becomes quite complicated. Again, you need to have a lot of clarity to make sure that you can share data very quickly at the time in which you need to address the issue as it's happening to suppress the funds before they get sent. So what's going to happen next? Well, again, to the previous presentation, battle of the bots, good bots versus bad bots like robot wars. My AI is bigger than your AI. The means in which that we can continue to combat the growing threat of disinformation and the growing threat of deepfakes to enable social engineering to access people's money is going to continue to grow. But that being said, it creates evidence and data for us to train our own robots on to try and protect ourselves against their robots. That's going to carry on. It'd be interesting to see how their impunity and their ability to operate without rules and regulation is going to combine with things like the EU AI Act and our own focuses on AI safety. There will be and is regulatory convergence for like-minded nations, but importantly, I put like-minded nations in there. Much of this that I have described is state-sponsored, particularly by the large elephant in the room today. And there's only so much that we can do without actually, imposing our controls and imposing our models on other countries. I'm nearly done, by the way. Rise of digital ID and digital currencies. And the call to action for me to the group is you've got to follow the money. You've got to make sure that we enable collaborative environments between your peers, share data, and protect customers. And don't give up, because it is really challenging. It always feels overwhelming at the scale and at which that this stuff happens. But progress is being made, and I think we're really at the precipice of starting to really break the back of the threat when it comes to fraud, financial crime, and that then as predicates to broader organised crime. So the last thing, time to taken to reach 100 million users worldwide. Well, how long do you reckon it took for DeepSeek to get 100 million users? Anyone reckon from the audience?
10 days.
1 second.
Week, 2 days. It took 7 days. 7 days for DeepSeek to gain 100 million users worldwide of people giving all of their personal information and data to something developed in China. So yeah, thank you very much. That's my presentation.
Chris, and thank you especially for the point to follow the money. I think that's a really, really good tip there, and something we should really consider. Right, we're going to set up our friends from Ukraine right now to present. So, guys in Ukraine, Ievgen, if you're ready to go, that'd be great. While we set that up, I just want to ask you a question. How many of you have actually fallen for this? I can put my hand up. I've fallen for disinformation. So, anybody else in the room? Yeah. Anybody like to confess? I mean, yeah. What was yours?
I mean, there's a platform I use called Steam, which had a huge news article that was a data breach and everyone needed to change their passwords about a day ago. There just wasn't.
Yeah.
They think that was because there was some fake change your password sites that they were trying to lead people to. Yeah. They'd actually get the information.
Yes. Okay. Anybody else got a confession of falling for disinformation? Yes.
Invoice from a supplier, followed by another email shortly after saying, "Sorry, wrong bank account."
Okay.
So I paid for the second bank account.
So that was a fraud one, really, wasn't it?
It was
financial an attempted cyber fraud. Yeah.
By email interception at the supplier end.
Yeah. Okay. Claire, you go on.
I had my identity nicked.
Oh, me too.
And apparently I was the mother of assorted teenage racer boys up north who were merrily going through all sorts of traffic lights and speeding and all the rest of the stuff because they'd taken my identity and used it to insure cars.
Wow, okay. I had mine stolen, and apparently I was running a business in Ohio. Somebody had taken my company logo, company name, everything, all the IP that we put out there, and they had apparently reinvented my business in Ohio. It became rather embarrassing at one point because the guy ended up in jail and people thought it was me. So anyway, that's a long story. So I'm going to welcome our friends from Ukraine. So we have Ievgen Vladimirov and Mykola Kudintsev, and my good friend Sasha Sizova. So, Sasha, just to be clear, Sasha isn't part of the International Cybersecurity University. Sasha's a partner of mine with the business. We work quite a lot together on various things. But I will hand over to everybody to say hello. And yeah, great to have you with us. Thank you.
So Mykola and Alexandra, so I'll give you a floor for welcome words and then continue with the presentation. Hello to everybody.
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for having us. And Mykola and Ievgen, I totally rely on your insights today, as you are the leaders of the efforts, and we're looking forward to hearing your story.
Okay.
Mykola?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, good evening, dear colleagues and friends, dear organizers. Thank you for your support of Ukraine. And I'm very pleased to be here. And we are very pleased from our team from Ukraine. Also, thank for the support for all the people of Great Britain. Because today, the unity of the whole world in confronting Russian aggression is very important for us. The fight against disinformation is, for us, is one of the fronts of this war. This fight in Ukraine is without segregation led by the Center of Countering Disinformation of the National Security and Defense Council, and the fact-checking platform, famous fact-checking Ukrainian platform Stop Fake. Also, the Ministry of Culture and Strategic Communications, which includes the former Ministry on Information Policy, the National Council of Television and Radio Broadcasting, which are very active in this process. Also, information agencies, journalists, scientific institutions, public organizations, one of which we now represent here, are involved in the process. The issue of interaction and support are really important for us, and we understand the responsibility for coordinating efforts to counter disinformation and misinformation, and we are ready to act as a contact point or a platform for our future interaction. We look forward to working with you, and we are very pleased to be here. We believe and hope that our common views and approaches will help build a more honest and responsible information space, not only in Ukraine, but also in Great Britain, Europe, and the whole world. Thank you very much, and let me put the word to introduce Ievgen to the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mykola Khudintsev, the board member of International Cybersecurity University of Ukraine. So, hello one more time. Really appreciate for opportunity to have a speech, to have a floor on such a great meeting. And also thanks to previous speakers, so lots of interesting questions, and turns back to Ukraine. And this, unfortunately for us, but really important for all the world experience in terms of really brand new things happening to the humanity. And one of such things is the first of a kind cyber war in the human history. Never been tracked before, and happening actually right now. And we're all the victims of such phenomenon as a cyber war. So, Ukraine now is the first country in the world to conduct defense in its sovereignty, integrity in all 5 domains. So we are protecting our land, our sea, our air, our space, and our cyberspace, including information domain. And it's first time happening in human history. Ukraine was prepared in cyberspace and by cyber domain to full-scale invasion. So since 2014, we gained extensive experience in like responding to huge Russian attacks. We create the National Coordination Center for Cybersecurity and establish national cybersecurity system. We adopt the information strategy, information security strategy, cybersecurity strategy, and the law on the basic principles of ensuring cybersecurity of Ukraine. Also, technical and human resources capacities and the main cybersecurity subjects were developed. And the MCIIS platform and State Cybersecurity Defense Center and the National SOC and SER teams were established in Ukraine. What's happened on the eve of a full-scale invasion? Actually, the full-scale invasion against Ukraine started in cyberspace in 13th and 14th of January 2022. So all the cyber attacks was correlated with military and political acts. All this was around the diplomatic, all the tries to diplomatically resolve the escalation of the war. And it actually resulted with the rocket strikes against our air navigation system, which was combined with a cyber attack against Viasat, the provider of satellite communications, which was kind of extra communication channel in case if we will drop our like regular telecommunication lines. So what happened after full-scale invasion started? So Russia just like opened all its showed all the guns in cyberspace. So it's started with the phishing attacks on government agencies and critical infrastructure. We tracked more than 2,000 attacks, cyber attacks in 2022, and now it's already around 4,000, almost 4,000 attacks already tracked in 2025. So they're just increasing the number of them and increasing the harm out of them. The hackers attacks energy systems and facilities, security and defense sector, military system, telecommunication, financials, and logistics. So all the critical infrastructure is the #1 target for Russian cyber attacks. The enemy focused efforts on the harm of civil population, and all these attacks coordinated and correlated with the missiles attacks. Some cases. On October 10th, so we had a huge and the first attack against our energy, the most critical infrastructure ever. A multi-stage attack on Ukraine's power system took place on the first day of massive attacks, strikes against Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Militias got disabled part of substations, which they tried to hide under the missiles attack. A year after, in 2023, the major outage occurred in the operator of Ukraine's largest telecommunication operator, Kyivstar. 24 million subscribers were outaged, so no connection. As a result of the cyber attack, it was not just to go and buy extra SIM, if it is possible in your city, in your place, but it was also affected on not working POS terminals or ATMs of some banks. Even air defense system was not working in, the alarm, the warning, air defense warning was not working in some cities because they was built because on Kyivstar telecommunication networks. And even in some cities, city lightings was not also responding. On January 2024, a large-scale cyber attack targeted Ukraine's Ministry of Justice. Actually, it was December. I don't know why it's sorry, it's a mistaken presentation. December 2024. A large-scale cyber attack targeted Ukraine's Ministry of Justice. So they just blocked code of the several registers, the main registers. It's the master registers of our country. It's demographical register, the register of the property, the legal entities, and so on. So over the 4,000 notarious and tens of thousands of legal transactions were affected nationwide. On the May 2025, the cyber attack disrupted IT systems of Ukrzaliznytsia. It's our Ukrainian state railway operator. So tickets, sales, scheduling, logistics were temporarily paralyzed, and its effect over the 1 million passengers and so on. So what actually, cyber attacks are not why we didn't consider those cyber attacks as the acts of war. Russia began conducting military operations in Ukraine cyberspace long before this full-scale invasion. Some examples. In 2014, Russia attacked our electoral system in cyberspace to undermine our sovereignty. Right now, we have full-scale invasion in all 5 domains of the war. In 2015, the Black Energy in 2016, they attacked our critical infrastructure. So they get access to our critical infrastructure and switch off the light on 24th of December. So not the best period to switching off the light for 300,000 house livings in the west of Ukraine. And the only one reason is to test the weapon and bring as much possible harm to people, because it was made in December, in the end of December. In 2017 and 2018, they attacked our government sector with Petya virus, which paralyzed the state administrative process for extended period, caused destructive damage to economy, governance, and political stability. All those attacks are also acts of war by Russia against Ukraine. Now we know it for sure, but we didn't respond to those cyber attacks in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and even 18, such as to acts of war by Russia against Ukraine. And we knew that it is Russian hackers associated with their military or security agencies to FSB, GRU, and so we knew that they are trying to undermine our sovereignty or cause some destructive harm to hundreds of thousands civilians. But yet our reaction was not the same as after the first Russian missile exploded in airport Boryspil, the main airport gates of our country. So interesting also statistic about what's happening with other countries, because the cyberspace doesn't have any boundaries. And accordingly to Cyber Peace Institute, as of April 2022, out of 88 Russian cyber attacks, which already in part of full-scale invasion, so out of these 88 attacks against Ukraine, in average, from 1 to 5 cyber attacks reach each NATO country. Since 2016, NATO has officially recognized cyberspace as a 5th domain of the warfare. But none of cyber attack by now was recognized as an act of war. One of more examples. In 2016, Russia hackers attempt to influence US elections. Looks like the same that we had in Ukraine. In 2020, Russian hackers attacked the US government via SolarWind, also paralyzed the work of government as Petya not Petya in Ukraine. In 2021, Russian hackers attacked the critical energy infrastructure of Colonial Pipeline. Actually, they blocked the supply of energy goods to all East Coast, which caused a national catastrophe national disaster in United States. So tell me, please, what is the real difference between those cases? The answer is the one. Ukraine is 100% sure that it's war. It's not that just kind of cyber incidents. It's not financially motivated hackers. All Russian hackers groups, they are not hacktivists. They are all working for government. They're all military ones. And they're making it because it's a part of war. And that's it. So the lessons we learned. Cyber war never ends, unfortunately. And even right now, we are expecting some peaceful agreements. We expecting a ceasefire in kinetic space, but we are sure about cyberspace will only like increase the number of attacks. We will see the increase of number of attacks. So the three like main points here, and I would like to pay all attention here, because the cyber war, because every war right now, as we see this algorithm, we already know that it's like a straight process. It begins in peaceful time with the influence, operations, and disinformation. Then it escalates through cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, government infrastructure, military infrastructure, and then it becomes kinetics, combined with information operations, disinformation, and with cyber attacks. So three main like steps what Russia doing against all the world already, and in Ukraine it has like the full house. The information attacks, cyber attacks, kinetic attacks. So what to do? So we have, hopefully we have an answer. Mike asked the question, so what to do with disinformation? Will we win, or disinformation win from us? And so I think we know the answer, the DISP. DISP is a disinformation indicator sharing platform, which for collecting, verifying, and sharing indicators of disinformation, submitted by trained participants or just a regular news consumer, the people who is reading news, and they should. Oh, sorry. I have two dogs. Please. Yeah, platform innovations. So we inspired by the MISP. So DISP inspired by MISP. Malware information sharing platform. It's actually was the key how to defend the whole infrastructure in Ukraine. The key to success in cybersecurity is sharing. You cannot predict how the zero-day attacks will develop. You cannot predict which application on your computer, on your phone, or on your server will be attacked. Will it be supply attack, or it will be phishing attack? With artificial intelligence, which used already in like increasing the powers of cyber attacks, it's unpredictable. The only way is to fight against it is to immediately share all the indicators about the cyber attack to everybody in order to localize cyber attack and restore harmed data or harmed infrastructure, but not allow this virus to become global. So the same approach here. Our goal to create the environment, digital ecosystem where the disinformation is systematically recorded, classified, leveraged for training, response, and policy development. So there are lots of platforms already right now in Ukraine and worldwide, in Britain, in US, lots of platforms. In Facebook, I can track any information that I don't like with the like checkbox that it is disinformation or this is a fake information, but we should share it and automatically update our systems and update our like policy, because it should become as a culture. So how it works? It's pretty simple. So four main parts is detection, it's submission, verification, and sharing. So on the first, so you just like false narrative or manipulated images or coordinating in behavior or bot farms or fake accounts. The submission through the dedicated form. So user provides source link, type of the thread, narrative, technique or channel or a target, evidence, screenshot, video, timestamp or hash or I don't know, or just a link, context, who is targeted, when it appeared, who benefits, geotags, keywords, labels, and thanks with the cooperation of Mike. So he has a great program how to educate people how to do it, because we should start like with the small groups to train the trainers and allow them to train more audience. And in order to get the regular news consumer who will, by reading his news, will start automatically to mark them. Of course, verification. Information should be verified by moderators on the first stage of development of the product, and the next automated rules and artificial intelligence. And sharing, this is a key. So we are tracking thousands, hundreds of thousands of disinformation in our information space, where now it is really fully controlled because of war. So we blocked lots of IPs. We blocked almost all Russian information resources, but still we have disinformation in Ukraine. And combining and submitting to our platforms such information. So as I said, we inspired by MCIIS. We are from cyber, so we are making cyber in Ukraine. So I think the biggest our achievement that what we did together with like team of international cybersecurity of Ukraine. So we launched a cybersecurity in sectoral cybersecurity concept for energy sector of Ukraine. So we started to work on this in 2019. In 2021, I became the deputy minister of energy, and in 2021 we finished this work with an agreed cybersecurity sectoral cybersecurity strategy for energy sector, which as a result. So by now, even within the full-scale invasion, we still didn't have any blackout in energy sector because of cyber attack. So we increased the price for Russians to make blackouts. Right now, what they can do, how they can reach blackouts only with the missiles, with the rocket strikes. They cannot reach the same result with the cybersecurity, which they already had experience in 2016 and 2017. And thanks to all energy sector of Ukraine, all the support of EU and Great Britain and United States with the support you made for us. So the MCIIS actually is a platform where the key stakeholders of energy sector or other critical infrastructure sharing information about malware information that they have in their own networks. And it is like proper standard for NATO, for EU, so everybody understands what MCIIS is. So the DISP applies the same logic, unified terminology, so interoperability, quality control, and open for integration with other platforms. So if we will launch the same approach in worldwide, so there will be no place for disinformation. And for my personal belief, war can be prevented. So Russia didn't start the war in 2014 full-scale invasion, but they made annexion of the Crimea. They started the hybrid and like civil war on the east of Ukraine. Why they didn't make it full-scale invasion? Just because the nation was not. They think that the nation was not ready for this. The disinformation level in Ukraine was not reached the maximum they had. They expect. So, if we win the information front line, as I said, Russia is pretty like simple in its approach. They are starting with information war. They're continuing it with a cyber war, cyber attacks against critical infrastructure, and then they are like making the combo with the kinetic attacks. So if we will win the information front line, so we will not allow them to move forward. So for us, and we think that this is a strategic response to hybrid threats that you are all facing right now. So Russia is already crossed the NATO boundaries in cyberspace, in information space, definitely. In cyberspace, there are lots of evidences. It's just a matter of correct naming of these attacks. So this is all from my side, Mike.
Brilliant. All right. I think that deserves a really so just a couple of things to pull out from Ievgen's presentation here. The idea that it starts in information, moves to cyber attack, moves to kinetic attack. There's the proof, right? You know, so we really do need to understand this. I think the other really important thing, and what we've applied for funding for, is to take the system which was shown just now, which is all about malware exchange and a platform to manage information around malware in order to counter it. Part of what we're trying to get funding for is to convert that platform to do the same, but for disinformation and for working in the information part of cyber warfare. So that's really what we're trying to do. I'm acutely aware of time. I know that there are pizzas and things outside. Should we take 5 minutes for questions while our friends are still on the line? Dalim, you okay with that?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so just 5 minutes for quick questions. Okay, yes.
You mentioned an energy sector sharing arrangement.
Yes.
How many other sectors did you have, or was it just for the energy sector?
Did you get that one, Eugene?
Yeah, so actually, so we adopt the law on critical infrastructure at the end of 2021. The president signed this law, and actually we start the process. Full-scale invasion really speed up the process of determining the critical infrastructure and connecting them to national cybersecurity stakeholders, to Security Service of Ukraine, to National Coordination Center. So we have a pretty good one, but in any case, so still have gaps. Talking about energy sector, so we spend like 3 years only of the life of International Cybersecurity University to make this process happen, just to connect all stakeholders of energy sector, make them share information between the energy sector, share this information to national stakeholders. So it was a huge job done, and actually we are seeing the good result there. Unfortunately, so we still have the gap in telecommunications sector. So that we have huge providers which are competitors one to each other, and they are still on a stage to start sharing information between them and sharing information with the government. So it's a process. So unfortunately, so we still have gaps.
Yes.
You have mentioned the attacks on national level and critical infrastructure for both Ukraine and also NATO, but I wanted to ask if you have any statistics or idea about the private sector and how that was affected, because I know for a fact that, at least in Romania, the private sector has also been very affected by the Russian IPs and just all the cyber attacks that have increased.
I would say so. In 2022, it was possible, but on a country level, we blocked lots of like thousands of I don't know, I think even millions of IPs, which were the sources of phishing or campaigns or sources of distribution of some malware, and starting from 2023, the second half of the year, so Russians started to focus to make cyber attacks more focused one. But its effects, of course, its effects like civilians and so on. Actually, if you remember the Romanian, it's also really interesting case. Just today, I read in news that Romanian government decided to actually adopt the law or the decision that they will use their air defense systems against Shaheds, which flying over the Romania to Ukraine. Just right now, they started this like act. But it's really connected to information and disinformation campaigns, because they started to talk about it in like last year. With the full scale, within the full scale invasion, there are about 18 Shaheds flight over the territory of Romania to Ukraine. So, and this kind of NATO country not shooting the military airplanes which like flying to another country to kill somebody. I mean, it's not like military air force or something, military airplane, civil airplane. It's military air force, which like targeting another country, but flying over your country. Why they didn't do it before, like they were like sure who will win president elections? So this is a kind of like delaying the decision before they can be sure definitely who will win the next elections, and how Russians affect the first round of president elections in Romania. We all also were victims of this. So it's really affecting, even on such a like a simple thing. So it's military plane which shouldn't be in your airspace, so just shut it down. But no.
Thank you for that. That's an excellent answer. Thanks very much indeed. Yes, Claire.
I'm just thinking, what do you think the rest of the world could learn from what your DISP and MISP schemes are? Do you think it would basically combat cybersecurity?
Yeah, actually, this is not. This is a really simple answer. So, disinformation campaigns, especially from Russia, is not only about, I don't know, to get some new subscribers to Telegram, I don't know, Vkontakte or something like that. It is a part of the war. We have to like admit it's first time happening. So we already was like really okay with the peaceful time. So we thought that every nation increase its level of the culture, education, and so on. So all problems might be solved through diplomacy and something like that, but not all the nations, unfortunately. And when Russians making the Russia, when they make this disinformation campaign in your country, believe me, so next one will be cyber attack, or it's already happening, something in your cyberspace. And after that, so they're just waiting when your country will be more like less strong because of disinformation campaigns and cyber attacks, in order to start its kinetic one.
Yeah.
So this is a really simple lesson. So we shouldn't like track this information campaigns just like pro bono that it is something happening in information field, and let's make some, I don't know, extra workshop on how to resist against disinformation. We should really be careful with such definition of its attacks in information field.
Okay, I think one of the key things here, I think, is that it's cheaper to invade a country with disinformation than it is to actually have anything kinetic. I mean, you could, I guess, several people would argue that that's already happened to a point in the United States, right? You know, there's not been a shot fired yet. You know, the disruption that's happened in the United States is of epic proportions. So, you know, it's a cheap way to get your way in the world, right? And that's why I think it's absolutely critical that we counter it. But as I said, I was really hoping tonight that we would learn from Ukraine, who are fighting for their existence as a nation, and I believe we have. I believe there's some great lessons to be learned there, and I want to kind of push this further so that we can learn even more and help each other and build up our resistance against disinformation. That's been the goal of tonight, and I hope very much that that's been achieved to a point. I would just like to say that as a follow-up, I would very much like to have another session like this here, but maybe around round tables next time, teams of people actually doing things, say, let's get stuff done. You know, we can hopefully organize something like that, and let's turn the talk into some kind of action. So that would be the next step. Contact myself through that. I know we've had a load of comments and questions we've not had a chance to answer yet. But if, David, you can let me have those questions, I'll do my best to get those fielded to the right people and get some answers out to those. I would finally say that there's an absolutely brilliant book that I would recommend here. That this approach, we could turn this into, if we can systemize this book into an IT solution, it could be brilliant, because this is taking a public health approach to disinformation. It's treating it like a virus, treating no different to what we would do with something like COVID-19. So, you know, one of the things which they talk about here is pre-bunking. So you give people an innocuous version of what's about to come down the line, and then they're ready for it, right? And they know that it's going to be rubbish when it comes to them. So this book is packed with extremely good ideas. The only problem is it's in paper form, not in digital form, and not being used by 100 million users at this point. So that, I think, is a challenge that we could take on and do something.
Mike, what's the book?
Sorry, yeah, it's called Foolproof by Sander van der Linden.
I have it on Audible.
Do you? Okay. Wow. All right. That's great. Okay, so it's
big thank you for our friends in you.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's not forget that they're doing this whilst under attack. All right, as Russia has launched its biggest waves of drones against the Ukrainians in the past couple of days. So we really thank you certainly from the bottom of my heart for taking the time out tonight to talk to us in such difficult circumstances. And I really do hope that we're able to support you.
Thanks, Mike, one more time for allowing me to participate here. Just the final sentence is, it's pretty high price right now we are paying for such a undetermination, so such a not correct understanding of all that disinformation and cyber attacks that Russia did before full-scale invasion. So, thank you very much one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike, well done for pulling this together. Personally, I don't know about you, I feel very humbled by this, because we play at IT, we do things and so on. This is real life, this is war, it's existential. So it makes me feel very inadequate in a sense. But the thought occurs to me that although Mike's efforts are commendable, that we should have round tables, etc., etc., shouldn't the round tables be of Amazon and Google and Microsoft, or shouldn't there be of Norton and Symantec and others?
Yes, but I think we can precipitate some of that, at least, with what we can do ourselves. I mean, don't underestimate how much power individuals have. I mean, look at Gandhi, you can take many, many examples, from individuals who made a difference. I think the worst thing that can happen is that individuals think, I'm just an individual, what the hell can I do about it? And that was my first question to everybody here was, how many of you feel hopeless about this, right? I think we can solve, as a species, we can solve the most complex of problems. If we can put people on the moon, if we can have vaccines, if we can, eradicate malaria, then why the hell can't we eradicate at least the most severest forms of disinformation?
And I should commend Mike and just let you know that when I first met him, he was arranging for vans, trucks, and so on, to take electrical equipment, generators and so on, all the way across Europe to Ukraine, to deliver them to the people who mattered. And I remember thinking at the time, yeah, surely they've got generators and so on of their own. Boy, haven't we learned a lot since then? Yeah. So that's the reality of life. And keep this topic in mind. Do get in touch with Mike. Do get in touch with us. Do get in touch with Claire. Let's see what we can do. And meanwhile, as my closing gambit, we have something coming up in our next event, which might be of interest to you. It's about communications. It's about networking, but not IT networking. It's about the area that IT people are poor at, human networking. That's on the 29th of this month. If you're interested, look out for it and come to it. And it's a special because it's a free event. So do sign up and come to that. But meanwhile, you're already signed up and the food is waiting. Let's go get it.
Just want to say thanks to the speakers. So thanks to Dalim, thanks to Claire, thanks to Helen. Who else do we have? We had Chris, Steve Sands, of course, Nicola, and Ievgen, of course, and Sasha, who said hello. So Anna is very much behind what we're doing here and working very hard on that as well. So big thanks to Sasha for pulling the model together.